Well, good morning, SCCS. Those are some really fun-looking games. I almost came out and joined. I don't think I do very well at baby Bronco backpack, but that's okay. All right. So I'm Mr. Cross, but we're family here. You can call me Fingers. I flew F-16s for 4 years. This is a picture of me. This is towards the end of my deployment. This is in Iraq. And I show this because I'm going to tell you a story about our trip to Iraq. So this is me there, and I'm here, so the story ends okay. So spoiler alert for you. But something you do need to see, because we're not all fighter pilots here, and so I have a video to show of air refueling. So I will attempt. There we go. All right. So you see this video. There's 6 F-16s. So one F-16. There's another F-16 that's then going to the tanker. That's a KC-135 tanker. There are 4 F-16s over on the right wing. They don't do it this way quite anymore. You're supposed to have a maximum of 3 on the wing, but this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like being in a turn. So in the turn, you see a lot of the tops of the aircrafts in this position. So that's going to be really helpful just from a visual standpoint as we walk through this. So it's September 28th, 2008. And I'm sitting in my cockpit, and the weather's actually worse than it is in this picture. And I'm number 6 of 6 aircraft, so I'm the last one that's going to take off. We're sitting at the end of the runway, and we're waiting to take off. And overhead, we have the tanker. The tanker is at 25,000 feet, so over 4 miles straight up, there's a tanker. The tanker's flown all the way from Alaska and is now over Japan, so about a 7-hour flight. And they're waiting for us to take off, and because the weather's bad and I'm a brand new F-16 pilot, they're really waiting for me, because I'm the problem in this story, because I'm new, and when the weather's really bad, they don't let you fly because the weather's too bad and it's too risky. So the weather's about 300 feet above the ground. My minimums from my experience level is 700 feet, so it's less than half of what it's supposed to be. But since we're not going to land there, we're just going to take off, and then we're going to join the tanker and fly 4,000 miles to Singapore. The weather maybe doesn't matter so much at the home airfield, so we get the approval to go anyway. So I'm really excited. I've had a couple of extra days to plan for this day. 5 days prior, I was in a similar position. I was just short of the runway, waiting to take off. Again, I was number 6 of 6 that day, but there was something wrong with the aircraft, and then I didn't get to go. So I got to see everybody else go, and then I was left behind, and I had to go back. And I didn't get to go. And it was 5 days later until they got another tanker and we could get the last 6 of us out of there. So I'm really excited, a little bit nervous because the weather's bad, but I've fallen back on what I normally fall back on, and that's studying, and that's preparing, and that's doing all the things that I need to do to be ready for this. So I've done everything. I've worked like crazy to be ready for this. So I'm excited, a little bit nervous, and nervous because I know that there's 5 other aircraft and they're going to be staring at me because I'm the new guy. And it's not really ever fun to be the new guy when everybody's really experienced and they're watching you and they're looking for you to make the mistakes. So there's a little bit of nerves here. But I had some extra days to study and to prep, and now it's time to go. And so we get the takeoff clearance, the tanker's in position, Number 1 takes off, and every 20 seconds after that, the rest of the aircraft in the flight take off, and then it's finally my turn. And so I accelerate, I take off, I raise the gear up, everything's going great. We have all the families there watching us take off. So the gear comes up, I rock the wings as a salute and a wave goodbye, as we're gonna be gone for 6 months. And I've got my wife, Mrs. Cross, who teaches 2nd grade here, and then my son, who was 3 months old at the time, he's now an 11th grader, Micah. They're out watching. They're watching us take off as we're leaving. I rock the wings, and then I take off, and we're into the clouds. The clouds are only supposed to be a couple of thousand feet thick, but today they're really, really thick. And our lead, 10 miles ahead of me, is up at the tanker altitude, and they're still in the clouds. And so we have to do a very complicated rejoin maneuver where we're using our radars, and we close. We can get to within 1,500 feet of the tanker, and then once we're within 1,500 feet, we have to wait for the clouds to decrease enough to where we can see the tanker, and then we can close visually. They don't let us get closer than that. So that takes a little bit of time, and finally we're on the wing of the tanker, similar to what you see in the video, except the weather's really bad still. But I'm doing my diligent job because we're not just flying, we have to keep track of other things. I'm number 6, so I'm in charge of knowing where all of the different emergency airfields are. So if somebody has a problem with the airfield, we know exactly what airfield, what steer point, the location, and then all of the information for that airfield. So on my knee board, I have a listing of all of the airfields. And so I have to get information off of the sheet of paper on my knee. I have to plug it into the computer, and I hit that. When I look down, we just started a turn. I type some things into the computer. I look up. I'm still in good position. I get some more information, type that into the computer. And then I look back up and I check, I'm still in position, and then I look at my heads-up display and I'm straight and level, which means I'm not turning anymore, which is really weird because I still feel like I'm turning. That's a really, really bad feeling. So I think maybe I'm not seeing something right, so I check at my lead, I look at backup instruments, and they say that I'm not turning. I check both of my backup instruments, and they confirm that I'm not turning. So I have what they call spatial disorientation, which is a very dangerous thing, and it's pretty scary to be spatially disoriented. And it's not just a little bit. It's I feel I am at 90 degrees of bank. So rather than upright, I am 90 degrees left, and I look at my instruments and I see that I am not turning at all, which is really scary. And for, to be the new guy, first off, that delayed us from taking off, and now I'm spatially disoriented. So I do what nobody wants to do in that situation, and I make a radio call and I tell these 6 other aircraft there who's all judging me, hey, I'm messed up and I'm spatially disoriented and I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do. And they say that moments like that's like time slows down, like the seconds become minutes and minutes become hours. And I can tell you it's absolutely how I felt, which is the exact wrong feeling that you want to have in this moment. You want that feeling to go as fast as possible and then be done with it, but time's really slowed down. They tell me to focus on the instruments and just to stay in formation, which I'm doing, but it's really hard and it's really challenging, and I'm a little bit scared. We continue for a couple more minutes, which feels like forever, and slowly the weather starts to get better. I still feel like I'm in 90 degrees of bank, but now I don't have to fly quite as close to stay in a position to where I can see, so it becomes a little bit easier to fly, and then a couple minutes later, the weather totally clears, we're out of the clouds, and I see something, and it's the horizon, and I haven't seen the horizon for about an hour now. And it's probably been 15 to 20 minutes where I felt like I was in 90 degrees of bank flying when I'm not turning at all. And as soon as I see the horizon and I have that fixed line out in the distance, the spatial disorientation goes away. And I see, and I just notice that there's a perspective that I get. And with that perspective that I get from the horizon, that is what helps my brain match what I'm feeling. And so we have instruments in the heads-up display and then 2 different standby instruments that we use. And those show you the horizon. But that's just on a little dial, or that's just on a little screen right in front of you, and it's not the real thing. And the brain knows the difference. And so as we continue to fly, it gets a lot easier. We're coming up to another patch of weather up ahead, and so we bring the formation back in, and now it's time to go again. We go into the weather, and I start feeling the same kind of feeling again. It's not quite 90 degrees, but it's different. And just like you saw in the video where you see the top of the airplanes, well, that's what you see when you're in a turn. And I realize with a little bit of different perspective that if I fly a little bit lower and I'm not seeing the tops of the airplanes, that disorientation goes away. When I just change the perspective by just a couple of degrees, the disorientation goes away and everything gets right again. Now, I know we're not F-16 pilots here, we're not fighter pilots, but there's a lot of perception and there's a lot of perspective, and there are a bunch of illusions that you have seen. So some of you, I'm sure, if you go on a long car ride, maybe at night, maybe in the mountains, and you're going around turns, you start to feel a little sick to your stomach. You get car sick. Or if you go on roller coasters, you start to get a little bit sick. Those are some perception issues, and those are some illusions that play. If you're staring at your phone, if you're staring at an iPad, or if you're reading, it can make it a lot worse. And it's because we lose sight of something that's further out in the distance and is unmoving. With that, to highlight that, if you don't deal with any of those things, we'll go through a couple of different visual illusions to talk about perspective. So who here can see the white triangle? Okay, most people. There's no white triangle. It's not there. But we can see it, and we see it because we see the corners in the circles, and then we see where it cuts off the black triangle, right? But there's not really a black triangle, and really there's not circles either. Now, if you zoomed in and you just looked at the circle, and I said, what shape is that? You wouldn't tell me it was a circle. You'd say, like, Pac-Man, right? And it's just a perspective thing. If you zoom in close enough and if you look at it in a different way, you're not going to see those different elements. So that's one example of perspective and illusions. Here's another one. There's 2 red lines up here. There's one on the left and one on the right. If you think the one on the right is longer, raise your hand. How about the left? And everybody just knows the answer, huh? They're the same length, and it's a perspective thing. You'll see this in movies. You'll see where they'll change camera angles to show different perspectives to make things look bigger or look smaller. So very, very common thing. Another perspective is these straight lines are the same length. Now the circles, whether they're outside or they're inside of the ends of the line, makes a difference in how we perceive it and which one we think's longer. Similar thing, if you put a caret on the end, it gives the same illusion. So there's a verse that comes up, and Solomon writes in Proverbs, and he says, to trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. And I bring this up because when I read this verse, I think back to that story. I think back to perspective, and I think back to visual illusions, and I think back to being spatially disoriented. And I think about how I was trusting in myself and my preparation and my training, and it failed me. And the thing that fixed it was having the right perspective, and it was having something that I could hold on to that was just as natural as we all see it. Just like you see it at the beach, you see it all the way from the left to the right, it's just that perfect straight line of the horizon. And when I had that horizon in sight, it fixed the disconnect in my brain from what I saw and what my body was feeling. We interested in seeing another illusion? Yeah? Okay. This one's a lot of fun. So, in this video, it'll give you the prompt. You need to count the number of times the people in the white shirts passed the basketball. Okay? And then at the end of it, we'll pause, and then I'll have you raise your hands to see how many times they passed the basketball. All right? Is everybody ready?
The monkey business illusion. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball.
All right, so if you think it was 14, raise your hand. Okay, we got one vote for 14. 15? Couple of votes. 16? Ooh, that's 17. 18? Can't answer twice. It's a good try, though. 16 is the correct answer. So good job. Did anybody see something else happen in the video? What did you see? A gorilla? A gorilla? Did anybody else see a gorilla? Okay. Really? Who believes that there is a gorilla? About half of you. Half of you aren't convinced. All right. So let's play this again.
The monkey business illusion.
Why did they call it the monkey
Count how
business
many
illusion?
times the players wearing white pass the ball.
Yeah. It is the same video. All right, so how many, this is a picture of the start, how many are in black shirts?
3.
How many in white shirts?
3.
At the end of the video, how many black shirts are there? 2. What happens? No, go ahead.
One turned into a gorilla.
They did not turn into a gorilla. When the gorilla walks on, one of the people in black walk out. And they walk off of screen. All right. Did anybody notice any other changes? Let's see, back there. Background changes color from what color to what? Go ahead. Red to orange. Red to orange. All right. So I bring that up because we can get focused on things. And when you're focused on one thing, there can be a lot of other things that are going on that we miss. So I remember the first time I saw that, and somebody said, yeah, there's a gorilla that comes out and bangs his chest and then walks off the screen. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I totally didn't see it. And then all the other things, I had to watch the video like 15 different times until I actually believed it. So every time I watch it, it still kind of blows my mind. It's a really fun video. So a couple of things going on, and that's just another thing that I wanted to talk about, and I just wanted to show you just to think about perspective, think about illusions, and just think about what we're focused on. And then I'll close it here with a passage from James, so the half-brother of Jesus, and he writes, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him." So, in the moment when I'm flying to Singapore and I'm spatially disoriented, like this doesn't come to my mind. The other one doesn't come to my mind. But when I read these and I reflect back on my life and I think back of trials, I think back of other things that have happened in my life, and this is something that does come to mind, and it's just to focus on things, just like the horizon was that time. It's really focusing on God and focusing on his word, because that is really our horizon line. Like that's the thing that keeps us grounded. That's what we can look to, and that can provide us help in times of trial. So I have a couple more minutes. And so, because you've been awesome and we got a couple more minutes, I'm going to open it up. We'll just do a little bit of questions and answers. So if you have any questions,